The film begins with a CIA agent named John who is watching the enemy from the top of a building. At that time, John isn't alone because he's helped by another agent named Ben, who is getting a closer look at the enemy. Ben is a senior CIA agent and is now the head of his CIA station, so he's really good at his job. He's been doing risky missions for many years. Right now, Ben and John are keeping an eye on a secret agent from Russia who might be a threat to the US government soon. The Russian agent named Ivan notices Ben and comes over to talk. There, Ivan tells Ben that he doesn't need to worry because he's not on a mission from the Russian government. He's just on vacation. Ben replies that he'll keep watching Ivan and suggests that it might be better for him to vacation in another country. One evening, Ben went to a cafe to celebrate his wedding anniversary with his wife, Farah. It turns out Farah also works at the CIA, where she handles data, and at the headquarters. Ben loves Farah deeply, and they have a son who works in another city. Shortly after they arrived at the cafe, Farah excused herself to go to the restroom, but just as she walked away, a huge explosion happened at the cafe. 6 months later, Ben was still heartbroken over the loss of Farah, who died in the cafe explosion. Determined to find out who was responsible, he continued to investigate the bombing. The next day, Ben visited Farah's grave. There, he prayed for her and promised to find the people who caused the explosion. In the afternoon, Ben had a meeting with top CIA officials. They discussed Farah's death. The officials were leaning towards closing the case, thinking the explosion might have been a gas leak rather than a bombing. Upset by this, Ben stormed out of the meeting. Outside, he met the CIA director who offered his condolences. The director tried to comfort Ben, asking him to come to terms with Farah's death. That evening, Ben saw on his laptop that the case about the cafe explosion was closed. The CIA and other officials decided it was just an accident caused by a gas leak. At that moment, Ben didn't believe this. He was convinced that someone had purposely killed Farah, so he decided to solve the case by himself. The next day, Ben went to the CIA office and talked to a hacker named Desmond. He asked Desmond to look back at the data from the cafe explosion. Surprisingly, they found that there were some Russians at the cafe during the explosion who might have been working with Ivan, the Russian secret agent. At that time, Desmond suggested that Ben should consider Ivan as a possible lead in the bombing. After talking to Desmond, Ben went home to check more details about Ivan. While looking through the information, Ben got lost in memories of the good times he had with Farah. He remembered one dinner where they were really happy together. During that dinner, Farah gave Ben a special necklace called the Fatima necklace and told him never to take it off because it would bring him good luck. Ben promised her that he would always wear it, even after his death. The scene switches back to the present, where Ben is planning to meet his colleague JN at a cafe. Ben and John meet up, and Ben is still upset about Farah's death and the fact that the CIA closed the case. Suddenly, he tells JN that he believes Farah was murdered on purpose, not just killed in an accident, and asks John for help. Meanwhile, John, being a good friend, agrees to help Ben. He also suggests that Ben should try to get some rest. Although he doesn't say much, John is quietly continuing to look into the case. Before they part, Ben thanks John for his support. Later, Ben visits Farah's friend, Hitchens, to ask if Farah had kept any secrets. At that time, Hitchens tells him that Farah was a good person who never did anything suspicious. However, Hitchens reveals that Farah had saved quite a bit of money that Ben didn't know about. Farah had been giving money to Hitchens to save for her retirement. Now that Farah is gone, Hitchens gives all the saved money to Ben. In the evening, Ben went to a casino to meet Ivan. At that time, they played cards together, and Ben asked Ivan if he was responsible for the explosion that killed Farah. Upon hearing that, Ivan, feeling insulted because he was innocent, ordered his men to attack Ben, leading to a fight. In that moment, Ben was outnumbered and soon found himself cornered. Meanwhile, Ben's son, Nick, was at home with his girlfriend. While she was out getting food, some CIA agents showed up at his door. They told Nick that he needed to come with them for his own safety, saying that it was his dad, Ben, who sent them. Initially, Nick didn't want to leave his girlfriend alone, but he eventually agreed to go with the agents after they insisted it was necessary. Back at the casino, Ivan had been held captive. Soon, one of Ivan's men pulled out a knife, not to hurt Ben, but to cut the ropes tying his hands. Ivan then suggested they have a serious talk about why Ben thought Ivan was behind the deadly explosion. Ben replied to Ivan, pointing out that since Ivan was a Russian secret agent, it made sense for him to target Farah because she managed all the CIA's data at that time. Ivan insisted he wasn't behind the explosion, explaining that he was on vacation and hadn't been assigned any mission by the Russian government. To prove his point, Evan showed Ben CCTV footage from the time of the incident, which clearly showed that Evan wasn't there. However, Ben noticed a man in the video who used to work for Evan. Evan explained that this person had not worked for him for a long time and had since joined a group of American mercenaries. After hearing all this, Ben started to believe Evan. Just then, they were suddenly attacked by the very group of American mercenaries Evan mentioned. During the attack, Evan was shot and urged Ben to run away as quickly as he could. Ben managed to escape and called John to pick him up. Soon after, John arrived and drove Ben away from the scene. On the way, Ben asked John how he got there so fast. John explained that he just happened to be in the area. After escaping the earlier attack, John took Ben to a secret hiding spot on a ship. Before boarding, Ben asked John to check on Nick because he was worried about him. There, John reassured Ben that Nick was safe because he had sent a team to look after him. However, it turned out that the 3 CIA members who picked up Nick weren't sent by Ben, but by John himself. Meanwhile, Nick was taken to a building by the 3 CIA members. He tried to resist at the entrance but was overpowered and forced inside. Back on the ship, John asked Ben if Farah had given him anything before she died. Ben replied that he hadn't received anything from her, and even if he had, it was private and not John's concern. Then John led Ben to a room on the ship to talk about something important. But as soon as they entered the room, Ben was suddenly held at gunpoint by several American mercenaries, the same ones who had attacked him earlier. It turned out that the American mercenaries were actually working under John's orders. Revealing that John was a traitor, the mercenaries tied Ben to a chair and began torturing him with electric shocks, demanding to know if Farah had given him anything before she died. Despite the pain, he insisted he hadn't received anything, which only led to more torture. When John realized that Ben wasn't going to give him any information, he ordered the leader of the mercenaries to keep questioning Ben. Then John left to try to get information from Nick. Just a few minutes after John left, the leader of the mercenaries, named Karen, confessed to Ben that he was the one who had blown up the cafe and killed Farah. He said they did it because some powerful people in the CIA told them to. Upon hearing that, Ben was shocked and couldn't understand why anyone would want to harm Farah. Before Karen could explain further, someone suddenly burst into the room to rescue Ben. The rescuer was a woman named Christina who removed her mask to reveal her identity. Ben wanted to know who Christina really was, but she said they'd talk about it later because they needed to escape right away. They quickly made their way to the front room, fighting and shooting John's men as they went. In the middle of the fight, Karen showed up again, forcing Ben to confront him. After a tough fight, Ben managed to defeat Karen and pushed him into the sea. Then Ben and Christina quickly escaped using a small boat nearby. When they reached the dock, Christina drove Ben to a hidden location. On the way, Christina revealed that she was a close friend of Ben's wife, Farah. She asked Ben if Farah had ever given him a necklace called Fatima. Ben said yes and showed her the necklace. Christina then explained that the necklace was actually a key to a secret room. In that room, Farah kept a laptop filled with very sensitive information. It turned out that Farah had secret data about massive corruption by the CIA director, which was why she was targeted and killed. Understanding all this, Ben realized why Farah was killed and why he and Nick were captured, and it was all part of the CIA director's plan to get the necklace and access the secret room. When they arrived at the entrance of Farah's secret room, Ben used the necklace to unlock it and went inside. Inside, he opened Farah's laptop, which had all the evidence of the CIA director's corruption, including a shocking amount of money involved. After discovering everything, Ben called John and told him he had the laptop with all the evidence against the CIA director. John then threatened to harm Ben's son Nick if the information was leaked. They arranged to trade the laptop for Nick's safety, and John sent the meeting location. After hanging up, Christina warned Ben not to hand over the laptop because she believed John would betray them anyway. But Ben wasn't planning to simply exchange the laptop. He was actually preparing to confront John once and for all. Christina agreed to help Ben with his plan. Before they left, Ben called Desmond and sent him a link with all the corruption evidence. He told Desmond to release the information to the public if he didn't make it back. Then Ben and Christina headed to the meeting place. Just before they arrived, Ben dropped Christina off nearby because she was going to cover him as a sniper from a distance, ready to protect him during the confrontation with John. Long story short, Ben met up with John, but John wasn't alone. He had a sniper on top of a building and 2 other men with him. At that time, Ben asked John to release Nick first and promised to hand over the laptop afterward. Once Nick was freed, Ben told him to get into the car. Soon after, Ben handed over the laptop to John, saying they were done dealing after this. But just as John was about to leave, Christina took out John's 2 men, leaving John by himself. Shortly after, Ben quickly grabbed the laptop back. Just then, Karen, who was surprisingly still alive, showed up to help John. Ben decided to escape in his car, which led to a chase and shooting. John's car ended up crashing during the chase, and Karen died in the accident, but John managed to jump out before the crash. Ben and Nick then went over to the crash site and confirmed Karen was dead. After escaping, Ben searched for John, who had fled. Soon, John showed up and dared Ben to fight him without any weapons. Hearing that, Ben accepted the challenge, but soon found himself backed into a corner. However, Ben was smart and managed to overpower John, knocking him unconscious. An hour later, Ben went back to where he had left Christina to pick her up. Shortly after, a car pulled up. It was driven by a CIA agent who had been ordered by John to arrest Nick the previous day. The agent apologized to Ben, explaining that he had been instructed to secure Nick, not kidnap him. Then, realizing the agent was just following orders, Ben forgave him. Then Ben asked the agent to take John to the police station to face charges for his actions. That evening, Ben called someone and asked them to expose all the evidence of corruption by the CIA director at a meeting with international officials the next morning. Ben himself couldn't do it because he was still officially a CIA station chief. The next day, the director was in a meeting with other top government officials. Suddenly, every official's phone and the meeting room's monitor screen received a notification showing proof of the director's corruption. At the same time, Evan, who had survived an earlier attack by American mercenaries, showed up. It turns out Evan was the person Ben had contacted the night before. Evan presented all the evidence of the director's corruption at the meeting. He even played a voice recording of the director ordering John to eliminate Ben and Nick. With no way to deny the accusations, the director was arrested by Interpol. The following day, Ben was overjoyed when he saw the news of the CIA director's arrest and the apprehension of others involved in the corruption. Now, with all the culprits behind Farah's death caught, the film ends with Ben finally able to live peacefully. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.